I call the October 18th, 2022 City Council special meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, will you please conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega.
Present.
Vice Mayor Tom Durham.
Here.
Council members Tammy Caputi.
Here.
Betty Janik.
Here.
Kathy Littlefield.
Here.
Linda Milhaven. Here. And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson.
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott.
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The purpose of this meeting relates to boards and commissions. This afternoon, the City Council will be making nominations for one Scottsdale Commission and appointing individuals to 5 boards and commissions. I will now turn the meeting over to Vice Mayor Durham to begin the process.
Thank you, Mayor. The Scottsdale City Council is responsible for establishing city policies and enacting laws in support of those policies. The council relies on volunteer, citizen-based boards and commissions to research issues and make recommendations in support of the council's mission and goals. The information and recommendations provided by council-appointed advisory boards are a valuable tool in helping council members in their deliberations. This afternoon, the City Council will be nominating Scottsdale residents interested in serving on the Airport Advisory Commission, as well as appointing Scottsdale residents interested in serving on various boards and commissions. I want to thank the individuals for their willingness to volunteer their time and service to the community. We'll begin today with the nominations for the Airport Advisory Commission. The Airport Advisory Commission advises the City Council on policy matters relating to the operation of the airport, proposals for development, airport area land use, fees, and safety concerns. Rick Milburn resigned in June, and the terms for John Berry and Corey Little expire in October, and both are ineligible for reappointment. There are 3 vacancies and 7 applicants. The applicants are Gregory Cohen, Michael Good, Fred Madnick, Robert Middlestadt, David Reed, John Spalge, and Carl Stein. I will now entertain nominations for the Airport Advisory Commission. Each council member can nominate 3 applicants. I will start with Council Member Caputi.
Michael Good, Robert Middlestadt, David Reed.
Council Member Whitehead.
Gregory Cohen, David Reed, Carl Stein.
No additional.
No additional.
Gregory Cohen, Michael Good, Fred McHugh.
Councilmember Janik.
No additional.
I will nominate Robert Middlestadt, David Reed, and John Spalge.
It's everybody.
All right. We have 7 nominations. Gregory Cohen, Michael Good, Fred Madnick, Robert Middlestadt, David Reed, John Spalge, and Carl Stein have been nominated. This concludes our nomination process for the Airport Advisory Commission. Appointments for these positions will be made at a special City Council meeting on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Individuals nominated will be contacted by city staff with additional information. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all who applied to serve on the Airport Advisory Commission. As all members were nominated, and all of the applications will remain on file for 1 year for consideration at a future date if there are additional vacancies. We will now begin the process for board and commission appointments. We will begin now our scheduled board and commission interviews and appointments. Following the sets of interviews, we'll vote on an appointment for the board or commission. As I call your name, please approach the podium and briefly cover the following. For the record, please state your name and address and how long you have lived in Scottsdale. Please tell us how your education, employment, or volunteer experience relates to this board or commission, and also address the top issue facing this board or commission. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes or less. We have a timer by the screen to help you manage your time. And following each nominee's response, I will ask council members if they have any follow-up questions. The first group we have is the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body that hears variance requests, appeals of the zoning administrator's interpretive decisions, and decides on administrative decisions or zoning requirements, which create unnecessary hardships in the development of property because of exceptional or extraordinary conditions. There is one vacancy and 2 nominees. The nominees are Travis Garcia and Justin Laos. I would ask Mr. Garcia to step forward.
My name is Travis Garcia, and my address is 6599 East Thomas, apartment 1147, Scottsdale, Arizona, 85251. I've been in Scottsdale now for 2 years, and I plan on hopefully acquiring a house in the next 3 to 4 months and staying here for a while. In terms of how my education or current employment applies to this board, I attended the University of California, Berkeley, studied political science and was pre-law. I exercise, I would say, fair judgment and listening to people, not only at work, but as in some of the community service I have done over the years. I just hope to serve the city. Having been out here, and it's kind of weird for me not doing something involved with the community, having moved a couple years back, obviously with COVID, there was a break in everything, so hoping to find something to do here at my new home. And I think top issue facing the Board or Commission is ensuring that we are focused on what's going on with zoning, keeping the community clean and safe, and making fair decisions, as well as decisions that coincide with what the mission of the board is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. You can step down. And now we'll hear from Justin Laos.
Hello, pleasure to be here. My name is Justin Laos, and I live at 3300 North Scottsdale Road, apartment 5004. And I've been up in Scottsdale now for 6 years. Actually a 6th generation Arizonan, originally from Tucson. And love the city, and I think it's the embodiment of the state. And with my employment, I work as a software engineer and also own a few software businesses based out of Scottsdale. I've worked for various startup companies in the city. Been a great experience being with those companies, being here and employing locals. Other volunteer things that I do, I'm active in Little Brothers Big Sisters. I have a little brother I've been with for about 3 years now. Also active in a local Rotary Club, and so we do various activities throughout the city and throughout the greater Phoenix area of community service. And when it comes to the Board of Adjustments, I find it interesting as in providing that sort of oversight and logical thinking to bring to those complex appeals to the code. I find working in software, it's something I just like to do and like to look in, see what the thoughts process were, what the leadership from the board is and what from the city is, and apply those in a reasonable way, in a practical way, and bring in, I think, a young perspective to the board might help. And yeah, very excited for it. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laos. I will now entertain a vote for the Board of Adjustment. Each council member can vote for one nominee, and I will start with myself. I will vote for Mr. Laos. Councilmember Janik.
Mr. Laos.
Councilmember Littlefield.
Mr. Laos.
Justin Laos.
Mr. Garcia.
Justin Laos.
Justin Laos.
Mr. Laos has been appointed. The Building Advisory Board of Appeals has the jurisdiction to recommend that minor variances in the electrical, plumbing, and mechanical application of the building codes be granted, and that alternative construction methods of materials be allowed. There is one vacancy and one nominee. The nominee is Julian Anderson. His term expires this month, and he is eligible for reappointment. Is Mr. Anderson here? There. Please step forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. My name is Julian Anderson. I live at 8210 East Del Claro Drive in Scottsdale, 85258. I have been a resident of Scottsdale for 24 years, and I currently serve on the Building Advisory Board of Appeals in the capacity as Vice Chair. Education, employment, or other activities. So I volunteered for the last 3 years, City of Scottsdale's Building Advisory Board of Appeals. I serve as president of a homeowners association and also on the Chair and Architectural Review Committee. How am I qualified? I have 47 years professional experience in the construction industry. I have qualification. I'm qualified in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. In addition, I am our company's qualifying party for our general contractor's license in Arizona and Nevada. So I think I am qualified for this position. Issues facing the board. Actually, I don't know that the Building Advisory Board of Appeals has any real issues. However, I would suggest that there are 3 things that could be done that would improve the board and its operation in the coming years. First, there is a considerable evolution in the energy and green building codes, and they happen on a rotational basis, and the evolution happens over a period of time. The way it works for the board is the board reviews the codes every 3 years and gets delivered these changes. I think it would be better if the board got regular briefings on changes in the code as the time went on, so that it was up to date and didn't get them all in one hit. Second, there is a lack of discourse between the Building Advisory Board of Appeals and some of the other boards, particularly SEAC, with which it ends up interacting. And so I would think that a regular intercommunication between the Building Advisory Board of Appeals and the Scottsdale Environmental Advisory Commission would be a good thing, and that should be able to be done. Third, the board has a high turnover, and I think that by being more interactive, that could improve the high turnover on our board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I will now entertain a vote for the Building Advisory Board of Appeals. We'll start with Councilmember Caputi.
Julian Anderson.
I like the suggestions. Julian Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Julian Anderson.
Mr. Anderson.
Julian Anderson.
Julian Anderson. Mr. Anderson has been appointed. Next, we have 2 openings on the Human Relations Commission. The Human Relations Commission advocates and promotes all dimensions of diversity. The commission acts as an advisory body to the mayor, city council, and staff to make recommendations on ways to encourage mutual respect and understanding among people, to discourage prejudice and discrimination, and to work towards cultural awareness and unity. There are 2 vacancies and 5 nominees. The nominees are Tina Drews, Matthew Keane, Marcy Lapine, Cynthia Romagnolo, and Marietta Strano. I will begin with Tina Drews. Will you please step forward?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Dr. Tina Drews. I am a resident of Scottsdale. Been here the
Could
last...
you move a little closer to the microphone?
11. Is that better?
Thank you.
Thank you. I've lived here 11 years, but grew up here from the age of 7 to 18, so I've returned to the home city. My address is 10635 East Gold Dust Avenue, Scottsdale 85258. My education, employment, and history, most of my life has been focused around issues of equity and inclusion. I started my career as a middle school educator in the Creighton School District, downtown Phoenix, as an advocate for English language learners within my classroom and the community. I served as a community advocate, teaching English as a second language after school hours through the community education program. And throughout my time as an educator, I wanted to continue with that work and actually went on to achieve a doctorate in education, curriculum, and instruction. I currently work for Salt River Project, and I am the Director of Talent Development at SRP. SRP is a longstanding institution within our state, and we did not have a DEI, or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion department within our organization, over 5,000 employees. I saw this as a gap, worked with our board and our executive leadership, and established that department at SRP. It's now fully resourced, and we have many strategic initiatives at SRP that are focused around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I see one of the biggest issues facing the commission is a lack of civil discourse around these topics. If we look at the work of the Center for the Future of Arizona and the Arizona we want, we find that most Arizonans agree on things like fairness, equity, and high-quality education. And if we can center around those things that we agree on, I think we can really move this work forward for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drews. Our next nominee is Matthew Keane.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Keane. I've been a resident of Scottsdale for roughly 25 years, born and raised here. Currently live at 11222 East Mercer Lane, Scottsdale, Arizona 85259. How my education, employment, and volunteer experience relates to this commission: I'm currently an operations manager managing roughly 400 employees. I've been doing this for about 10 years now. I currently lead a lot of the diversity and inclusivity programs within that department, as well as in previous work experiences leading hiring plans for more inclusive and diverse teams. For volunteer, I am currently the president of my homeowners association in Chula Vista in North Scottsdale. I've been serving on that association for 2 years now, which opens me up to relating more with the public and being able to talk on these diverse challenges that we have in our neighborhood as we try to broaden our outreach in our community. And the top issue facing the board right now, I think a big opportunity is youth education. I'm a product of the Scottsdale public school education And I think that a lot of the stuff that I was missing growing up through that, I could have been taught or been more a part of through some of the engagement activities that this commission currently helps support and puts on events, and how we can include the public school system to help run these programs and provide more ideas, as the youth, I believe, is very open and excited to be more diverse, as we've seen with newer generations. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lapine. Or Mr. Keane, I'm sorry. Our next nominee is Marcy Lapine.
Good afternoon. I'm Marcy Lapine, and I live at 27351 North 92nd Street in Scottsdale, Arizona, also known as Section 31. And I've lived here for a little over 11 years now in this beautiful city. I'm an associate professor at Arizona State University, and I'm in the W.P. Carey School of Business there. I teach courses and I do research in the area of human resources and organizational behavior, focusing on topics like leadership, teams, diversity, and stress. And I do my research in those areas as well. And I am also the member of the DEI Assembly in my school. And what I see as the biggest issue is for the Human Relations Commission is building resilience through DEI efforts. And in terms of building this resilience, I see an opportunity to build multi-team systems. And what these multi-team systems are connected networks of individuals that before have been disconnected from each other, and forming those relationships and those bonds, sharing information, and through that gaining innovative ideas. One simple way that I thought perhaps this might be possible is through creating videos of some of our organizations or business leaders who have created some of these DEI projects and led initiatives, and sharing that information with others, perhaps on a website, perhaps through social media, to get that information out and, again, to share that information. So for me as an educator, this would be really valuable to me. I could bring these Scottsdale businesses and groups into my classroom. I could share some of their best practices, maybe some of their struggles as well as with what they're doing. So what I see is through these networks that we can become stronger and more resilient. So if selected to this board, I would do all that I can to promote the voice and the engagement of all of our people, and to build a Scottsdale for all. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lapine. Our next nominee is Cynthia Romagnolo.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Romagnolo, and I live at 12710 North 102nd Street in Scottsdale, 85260. I have lived here since 2005. Professionally, I have been a long-term financial advisor, honestly 30 years, very long time. And I work with the same company, but in the last 7 years, I've spent a lot of time broadening my interest in the community. So I have been involved locally here in a couple of boards at my children's school. I have 3 children who have graduated from Scottsdale schools. I've also worked on the board at those schools. I've worked in some nonprofits, and most recently I volunteered with Rescue.org, the Welcome Center. One of the main things that I do as a side gig at my job is I spend a lot of time in our women's leadership group. So our women's leadership group is 10,000 people. My division is called Branch and Remote, and we have more than 2,000 members. And I spend a lot of time across multiple employee resource groups understanding what our members need and what they need to do to be involved in their communities and be more inclusive. I I think one of the main things that we have at a large company that I work with that is so important, and what the Human Relations Board is focusing on, is just educating the public. So, what is the information, why it's important to be inclusive, what that can do for you, and how to recognize your previous biases. My goal here is really to become more involved in our community and take the information that I've gleaned from working at a very large company to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romagnolo. The next nominee is Marietta Strano.
Thank you. I am Marietta Strano, and I reside in South Scottsdale. Excuse me. My address is in your file. If you and I had had a conversation 40 years ago, I would have probably told you that the Valley was the least likely place I thought I'd be. High school students from Japan came to Prescott, where I lived. I coordinated a language and cultural immersion program. As a teacher, never ask your students to do anything you're not willing to do. And that premise took me to Kunming in Wuhan, China, and then to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Returning to the US in 2011, after teaching 5 years overseas, I found a place with a reasonable cost of living, a familiar environment, access to public transportation, and a life without a car and possibilities. Imagine Scottsdale. Our city's libraries welcome those who speak other languages from around the globe, including Turkey, China, Colombia, Jordan, Ukraine. We assist them in adapting to a new culture. And this is where you will find me each week at Civic Library, facilitating conversation and probing our students' interest. Stepping back in time, when my grandparents arrived from Italy at the gates of Ellis Island, never having heard them speak English, they struggled to adapt. To adapt includes meeting locals, finding a sense of place, and knowing a community. My knowing Scottsdale includes having attended all of our citizens' academies, fire, water, government, and police. And what I have learned in these academies, I bring back to my students. Excuse me. I was raised in Philadelphia, educated by life's experiences, acquired a few college degrees, and lived and taught in Kansas and overseas, in places where I never imagined I would be and where I have done the most. If offered to serve on this commission, I will contribute what I have reaped from these experiences and take my leadership skills in a new direction. It seems to me what we're faced with is how do we give access in what we, Scottsdale, offers? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strano. I will now entertain a vote for the Human Relations Commission. Each council member can vote for 2 nominees. Going to start with Mayor Ortega.
Dr. Tina Drews and Matthew Keane.
Councilmember Milhaven? Yes.
Mr. Drews and Ms. Drews and Mr. Keane.
Councilmember Whitehead?
Miss Drews and Miss Strano.
Councilmember Caputi?
Tina Drews and Cynthia Romagnolo.
And I would vote for Ms. Lapine and Cynthia Romagnolo. Councilmember Janet?
Tina Drews and Matthew Keane.
Councilmember Littlefield?
Marcy Lapine and Marietta Strano.
So Tina Drews and Matthew Keane have been appointed. Do I have that right, Rommel?
No, it has to
No, Ms. Drews was appointed, but we'll have to vote again for the other position.
All right, and these are the remaining nominees?
Yes, sir.
All right. Start with the mayor again. You coming this way?
Matthew Keane.
Councilmember Littlefield.
Marietta Strano.
Councilmember Janet.
Matthew Keane.
Marcy Lapine.
Cynthia Romanola.
Councilmember Whitehead.
Marietta Strano.
Councilmember Millhaven.
Matthew Keane.
All right. So Mr. Keane has been appointed.
No, what we can do here is we can, the lowest vote getters, we can clear the board, and we'll have the two top getters. You'll vote again. One more round.
Oh.
Okay, if you could vote again, Ms.
All right. I will start. Marietta Strano.
Matthew Keane.
Marietta Strano.
Matthew Keane.
Matthew Keane.
Marietta Strano.
Matthew Keane.
Mr. Keane has been appointed? Yes. All right. Thank you. Next, we will move on to the Transportation Commissioning. There are two openings here. The Transportation Commission advises the City Council on matters relating to the safe and efficient movement of vehicles, transit, pedestrians, and bicycles. The Commission provides a public forum to hear citizen complaints and requests regarding transportation matters. There are 2 vacancies and 3 nominees. The nominees are Emmy Cardella, Robert Marmon, Marianne Miller. Ms. Miller's term expires this month, and she is eligible for reappointment. She is unable to join us this afternoon, but very much would like to be reappointed to the commission, and she submitted written correspondence for council review prior to today's meeting. So can we start with Ms. Cardella?
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Emmy Cardella. My address is 8217 East Redfield, and I am a resident, and I have been a resident for 44 years. I've always been very active in the community here. Prior to having children, I volunteered at the Scottsdale Public Library, as well as being part of a Kiwanis Club and serving as a big sister through Big Brothers Big Sisters. And more recently, I have volunteered through the Scottsdale Unified School District. I've served on the board of parent organizations at 2 schools, as well as serving for 2 years as president of the Scottsdale Parent Council, which is an organization that serves parents throughout the full district and coordinates closely with the district leadership. In the community, I have volunteered through the Maricopa County court system as a court-appointed special advocate for foster children, and I have been a Scouts leader for over a decade. Professionally, I work in the finance sector as a data analyst. Now I work specifically in banking, and all of my work requires a great attention to detail, as well as understanding and appreciation for policy and following processes. In terms of Scottsdale transportation and the challenges that I think we face, it's, I believe, being able to serve the needs of all of our residents and tourists, and more importantly, being able to understand how those needs are going to change going forward, since transportation requires such long-term planning. For example, with COVID, the commuting patterns of our workforce changed dramatically, and those changes seem to be long-term. Our demographics of the city have certainly changed dramatically since I've been here in 40 years, and our population is getting older, and there might be, more considerations around that and what our residents are looking to, how their transportation to serve them. I believe that we can use data to address these issues and understand how our demographics and the preferences among our tourist population are also changing in order to address these. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cardella. Next, Robert Marmon.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the Commission, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Bob Marmon, and I live at 9087 East Saguaro Drive, and I've been there for 16 years with my wife. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Arizona, and my design and construction experience is focused on transportation, infrastructure, and land development. During this time, I learned a number of things. That first, all the projects are different, and they come in all different shapes and sizes and have many different challenges. But the approach is generally the same. Understand the scope of work and the dollars, understand the time frame and the schedule, have a good team, look for innovative solutions, and put it all together with the team to have the answer. I believe the biggest challenge right now, which my experience would help for the Commission, is change management. We're being faced with a lot of construction cost changes. We have a good infrastructure in the city, and I believe we should use that to the maximum extent to help costs and use technology. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Marmon. I will now entertain a vote for the Transportation Commission. Each council member can vote for 2 nominees, and I will start. I will vote for Ms. Cardella and Mary Ann Miller. Councilmember Janik.
I vote for Emmy Cardella and Mary Ann Miller.
Councilmember Littlefield.
Emmy Cardella and Robert Marmon.
Mayor Ortega.
Emmy Cardella and Mary Ann Miller.
Robert Marmon and Mary Ann Miller.
Councilmember Whitehead.
Emmy Cardella and Mary Ann Miller.
Councilmember Caputi.
Emmy Cardella, Mary Ann Miller.
Vice Mayor, if I could get your vote again, please.
I'm sorry?
If I could get your vote again.
Emmy Cardella and Mary Ann Miller.
And Councilwoman Janik, if I could get your vote again.
Emmy Cardella and Mary Ann Miller.
Thank you.
Emmy Cardella and Mary Ann Miller have been appointed. Thank you. Next, we have the Veterans Advisory Commission, and there are 2 openings on this commission. The Veterans Advisory Commission advises the City Council on veteran programs, policies, and practices, and serves as a community connection point for veterans and the community where they live. There are 2 vacancies and 5 nominees. The nominees are Gerald Conover, Patrick Mazzarella, John McHugh, Peter Palmer, and Bethany Schilling. Mr. Conover is unable to join us this afternoon, but is still very much interested in being appointed to the commission. Mr. Palmer's term expires this month, and he is eligible for reappointment. Mr. Conover, can you come? Oh, he's not, I'm sorry. He's not able to attend this afternoon. Mr. Mazzarella?
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Mazzarella. I've been a resident of Scottsdale for 26 years. My address is 10688 East Penstemon Drive in Scottsdale. That's at McDowell Mountain Ranch. By profession, I am a registered investment advisor. I've been involved in veterans causes for the better part of 10 years. My dad, a member of the greatest generation, was my inspiration. He served in the Navy during World War II as part of the Pacific Fleet. 10 years ago, he went on an honor flight to Washington, D.C. When he returned, we talked for quite a while about the experience, and I knew I wanted to get involved. I contacted the local chapter in Arizona based in Prescott, and subsequently, with the help of a local charity group, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, which some of you may be familiar with, I was the chairperson for 3 fundraisers. We raised over $80,000 and sponsored 80 vets on the honor flight back to Washington, D.C. I myself was a guardian on one of those trips for the vets, and I have to tell you, it was and remains an experience I will never forget. I have also worked closely with 2 homes in the Valley that provide temporary housing to homeless vets. One was the James Walton Home, and I am currently working with the Manor House in Phoenix. That is a 75-bed facility that provides services and housing while helping vets transition to independent living. I have helped organize and been responsible for delivering items to them, such as bedding, towels, toiletries, appliances. In fact, just today on the way here, I received an updated wish list from my contact there. And we'll be back out there again, bringing them the stuff that they need. Though I never served in the military, I have the utmost respect for the men and women who do, especially with the challenges they face today. And I think the biggest challenge that I see for most of the vets I meet is the mental health challenges in transitioning back to civilian life. The Manor House supplies a lot of those services, but it's still something that, we need to concentrate on. I would welcome the opportunity to serve on the board, and I believe with my experience and the contacts that I have, I would be a valuable member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzarella. Next is John McHugh.
Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John McHugh. I've resided in Scottsdale for a little over 2 years. Born and raised in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States Marine Corps took me out to California, where I spent 8 wonderful years serving our country, and have just recently been a resident of Scottsdale at 7801 East Pinnacle Vista Drive, 85266. I currently work as a cyber systems engineer for one of the largest government contractors in the country. Just recently, I did a year tour in the Middle East, supporting Operation Inherent Resolve, helping our warfighters get the support they needed. I felt a need to give back, which is why I'm here. If it wasn't for the military, I wouldn't be in this position that I am right now. And I think it's important for me to assist in any way I can. Although I don't have any formal volunteer work, this is, I guess, where it starts. I don't have credentials like some. I've essentially right off the boat. So I'm kind of fresh as to what veterans need. I believe it starts in small government. I think Veterans Affairs can do a lot for our military members. However, it truly does start here at home within the community. And as somebody who is obviously very close with service members and my time serving the United States Marine Corps, I feel like I could be a really good asset to the organization. So I do thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. Next, Mr. Peter Palmer.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, I'm Brigadier General retired Pete Palmer, 7181 Camelback Road, Scottsdale, Arizona 85251. 15-year resident now of Scottsdale. As you all know, I served as the chair for the first commission as we stood that up, and I was involved especially with significant assistance from your city staff member, Kelly Corsett, who did a wonderful job in helping us establish it and some of the major objectives we did. Just to highlight a few key ones, we did develop the detailed work plan that we continue to evolve. We established a city website to provide information to veterans. We've established a monthly or bi-monthly Veterans TV program that highlights a lot of the opportunities for veterans. And as part of the work plan, we research key veterans issues dealing with, first of all, identifying all the veterans demographics for Scottsdale so we have a picture of who we're serving. We did the veterans homeless issue, which we continue to track, as well as veteran suicide. And I personally developed a Scottsdale Veteran Quality of Life Manual that provides information and links to assistance on major veteran life transitions and life challenges they face, many of which have addressed. I also serve on 2 veterans nonprofits, and I serve on Senator Sinema's Veterans Council. In terms of the key issues facing us, we do have the work plan, but I think was highlighted actually by some of the earlier members. There is a lot of veteran services and great, actually 2,000 veterans organizations working in the Phoenix area. Capturing all that information and figuring out how to provide that to our Scottsdale veterans, I think, is a key issue because there's ways to help their problems. We just got to get it out to them and identify them. And I applaud your services of doing that piece. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Next is Bethany Schilling.
Hello, Mayor Ortega, members of the council. Thank you for having me here today. So I have lived in Scottsdale. My name is Bethany Schilling. I've lived in Scottsdale on and off since 2006. My current address is 9375 East Poinsettia Drive in 85260. The reason I say on and off is because I just got out of the military. It's been a year and not even a year and a half yet. So I would come to Scottsdale and we bought our house in 2018. Didn't get to live in it, but thankfully my husband, when he retires, we will both be living in it now. So that is my experience. I served 12 years in the Arizona Army National Guard, the Louisiana Army National Guard, and active duty Army as well. My husband is currently at 19 years and 6 months and hopefully retiring from active duty Army as an infantry. So that's my personal experience and why I know that I haven't been doing a lot of volunteering lately. I do still help transitioning soldiers. I was a retention officer for my last unit, and so if we couldn't retain them, I would actually help them find the resources for when they get out. The top issue that I see facing the board was a lot of the ideas and the presenters that they have, nothing's really come to fruition yet, which while I understand it's a very young board or young commission, I feel like there's some things that they had great starts on that I didn't see anything come out of it, and I haven't seen more discussions on it that are happening during the commission meetings. The next one is, I believe, the diversity of the Scottsdale veterans is going to be changing. It is mostly an older group right now, so while they need to focus on those issues for that older age group, we also need to diversify so we can focus on resources to provide for younger veterans coming in as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schilling. I will now entertain a vote for the Veterans Advisory Commission. Each council member can vote for 2 nominees. We'll start with Councilmember Caputi.
Peter Palmer, Bethany Schilling.
Councilmember Whitehead.
Peter Palmer, Bethany Schilling.
Councilmember Milhaven.
Peter Palmer and Patrick Mazzarella.
Mayor Ortega.
Peter Palmer and Patrick Mazzarella.
Councilmember Littlefield.
Patrick Mazzarella, Peter Palmer.
Councilmember Janik.
Patrick Mazzarella, Peter Palmer.
And I will vote for Peter Palmer and Bethany Schilling. And it looks like Mr. Palmer and Mr. Mazzarella have been appointed. Is that correct?
Correct.
I hope so. Thank you. This concludes our appointment process for today. I would like to thank all our nominees for their interest in serving on a city board or commission. We are fortunate to continue to receive qualified applicants for the positions on our boards and commissions. Even if you are not appointed today, your application will remain on file for consideration at a future date if there are additional vacancies. City staff will consult the individuals appointed this evening and provide them with information on next steps regarding their appointment. The City of Scottsdale is very fortunate to have such dedicated and talented individuals who are willing and ready to serve for our city. Now, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we are concluded with the business. I would ask for a motion to adjourn our City Council special meeting.
So moved.
A motion and a second. Please record your vote. We are adjourned, and at 5 o'clock, we will start our regular council meeting. Thank you. Good evening. I call the October 18th, 2022 City Council regular meeting to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega.
Present.
Vice Mayor Tom Durham.
Here.
Council members Tammy Caputi.
Here.
Betty Janik.
Here.
Kathy Littlefield.
Here.
Linda Milhaven.
Here.
And Solange Whitehead.
Here.
City Manager Jim Thompson.
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott.
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews.
Here.
City Auditor Sharon Walker.
Here.
And the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. We have Scottsdale Police Sergeant Sean Ryan and Detective Dustin Patrick, as well as firefighter Rob Clark, if anyone needs assistance. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Tammy Caputi.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to call our attention to the people and country of Ukraine. They're in the forefront of our thoughts, and let's pause in silence as we think of their fight for freedom, peace, and as a nation. Thank you very much. I want to point out that the Desert Dog Police Canine Trials and Public Safety Expo is at Westworld this weekend. So that's October 22nd and 23rd. The Association of Canine Enforcement teams are inviting over 70 canine teams regionally and even some across the way. They will be showing their skills and two-day competition. Admission's only $5, and if you're 12 or under, you get in free. We do have home arena advantage because our canines, Scottsdale canines, will be there. So just a reminder, and look at that at Westworld Indoor Arena. City Manager Thompson, do you have anything for us?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I believe we have a video we're going to share this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Public Affairs Specialist Stephanie Hirata with 5 fast things happening around the city you need to know. Starting us off at number 5, it's McDowell Sonoran Preserve Month. Take a moment to appreciate the more than 30,500 acres of majestic protected natural open space. On October 3rd, 1994, the Scottsdale City Council formally dedicated the first lands for the preserve. The Day 1 preserve was 4.5 square miles consisting of 3 parcels of city-owned land. Today, this permanently protected sustainable desert habitat encompasses 47 square miles, about 1/3 of Scottsdale's land area. The McDowell Sonoran Conservancy is commemorating this month with plenty of activities including bird walks, bike rides, fitness sessions, and crafting. Get the details at mcdowellsonoran.org and search events. Coming in at number 4, calling all ghouls and boys, treat yourself to a night at the Railroad Park's Halloween Spooktracula. Stop by for a spell between 6 to 9:30 p.m. through October 31st as we transform the park into a haunted hamlet. This family-friendly event is perfect for kids of all ages. We'll creep it real with the featured event, a spooky train ride created with younger children in mind. A bit spooky, but not too scary. Get all the frightening fun details at therailroadpark.com and check out special events. Next up at number 3, Right Tree, Right Place program keeps Scottsdale safe and shaded. The city is partnering with SRP to remove approximately 130 trees dangerously encroaching on power lines. Trees more suitable for the respective areas will replace those removed at a ratio of 3 new trees for each removed. The Right Tree, Right Place program helps SRP maintain electric reliability, ensure public safety, and work toward the goal of adding shade and reducing the urban heat island effect. Heat islands are urbanized areas that experience higher temperatures than outlying areas. This program also reduces the cost of managing vegetation, saving taxpayers money. Learn more at scottsdaleaz.gov and search Right Tree, Right Place. At number 2, Scottsdale EZ earned an award for excellence from the Center for Digital Government. CDG's annual awards recognize the achievements and best practices of states, cities, and counties that are radically improving the experience of government services. Scottsdale EZ is the city's one-stop online report a problem app, developed entirely in-house by city staff. Whether it's a broken streetlight, a fresh pothole, or a missing trash can, this online service makes it easy for you to report problems with city facilities or services. Simply visit scottsdaleaz.gov/EZ to send us a tip. Wrapping things up at number 1, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence annually in the United States. Right here at home, Scottsdale's Victim Services assisted nearly 1,200 domestic violence victims last fiscal year. That's from July 2021 to June 2022. This includes helping victims with getting orders of protection or injunctions against harassment, referring them to support services, escorting them to court, answering questions about the criminal justice process, and advocating on their behalf. You can help victims by donating hygiene and toiletry items through October 31st. The donations will be forwarded to Control Alt Delete, a nonprofit that helps victims escape violent situations. Get a list of needed items and locations where you can drop them off. Visit scottsdaleaz.gov and search Victim Services. And that's Scottsdale's Fast 5 for October. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Well, moving on, according to our newly amended Rules of Council procedure, and this evening's posted meeting agenda, at any time during tonight's meeting, the council may make a motion to recess into executive session to discuss and consult with attorneys and representatives of the public body to obtain legal advice on any applicable item on tonight's agenda. If authorized by a majority vote of the council, the executive session will be held immediately after the vote and will not be open to the public. The public meeting would resume following the executive session. So this information is provided for informational purposes only. Next, we will move on to public comment. Public comment is the opportunity for Scottsdale residents, business owners, and or property owners to comment on non-agendized items that are within the City Council's jurisdiction. Advocacy for or against a candidate up for election or a ballot measure during the City Council meeting is not allowed pursuant to state law and is therefore not deemed to be within the City Council's jurisdiction. Any public comment would not result in any official action to be taken on these items, and the speakers are limited to 3 minutes to address the council. Turning to the clerk, we have no requests for public comment. So at this point, I would close public comment. Next, we will go on to the minutes. I would ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes regarding regular meeting and work study session minutes of September 13th, 2022, regular meeting and work study session minutes of September 20th, 2022. Is there a motion and a second?
I motion to accept them, to approve them.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Thank you. Please record your vote. Okay. Thank you. It's unanimous. Excuse me. Next, we will move on to consent agenda items, items 1 through 16. They are all of record and show with their individual cases. As a consent agenda item, it could be handled with one motion. We, however, always allow for public comment on any consent agenda items. If anyone had or wished to speak on an item, they could have registered a request. Seeing none on consent agenda items 1 through 16, I would therefore close public comment on the consent agenda items. Next, I would call to see if there's any comment or point to make among council. Seeing none, I would then be open to a motion regarding consent agenda items 1 through 16.
Mayor, I motion to approve items, consent agenda items 1 through 16, and I commend staff for all the grants.
I
Second.
Thank you. We have a second from Vice Mayor Durham. So let's please record your vote. Betty, it's a little slow. There we go. Thank you. It's unanimous. Moving on to our regular agenda items, I'm going to point out that the council rules ask that those attending observe the same rules and order and decorum applicable to members of council ourselves and to city staff. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from the audience, such as applause, stamping of feet, whistles, boos, yells, and or other demonstrations shall not be permitted. Violations of these rules would result in the removal, and just pointing that out in case there is public comment or other comment during our proceedings. We will now move to item number 17, the Voita Residence front window and door replacement, case 52 HP 2002 appeal. The presenter is Jesus Murillo, senior planner. Hello, Jesus.
Hello, good evening, Mayor Ortega and members of the council. Again, Jesus Murillo, a planner here, and tonight acting as the Historic Preservation Officer before you. Today we'll be presenting in front of you 52 HP 2022, also known as a Voita window and door replacement. This request is actually an appeal to a previously denied case that went before the Historic Preservation Commission. The applicant requested that a front door be replaced with double doors, also known as French doors. That request was denied with a vote of 5-1 by the Historic Preservation Commission. To give you a general location of the site, it is located on the northwest corner of East Camelback Road and North 78th Street. The site is currently zoned R4 HP, also known as Townhouse Residential with the Historic Properties Overlay. This is a closer look at the site. You can see it's located on the north end of Coolidge Street, and it is part of the Villa Monterrey Townhomes community. This is the site plan that the applicant provided with the case. That red line that you see is the location of the existing window, which the applicant is requesting to convert into double doors. This is the elevation that the applicant provided with that application. I'll zoom in just a little for you. So that area that you see highlighted there in the blue identifies the location of the existing window, and there to the right you can see the doors that the applicant is proposing to replace the windows where they are located. Staff did a little bit of research for council. Currently, in the 758 units located within the Villa Monterrey community, there are about 22 that currently have these French doors. 3 of them, 2 examples which you see here today, were approved by the Historic Preservation Commission in the past. There's about 6 of them that existed prior to the Historic Preservation Overlay in 2011, and then there's one that the council appealed about a month ago, and then there's about 12 that appear to have provided the improvements without any type of approval from the city. This is the example of the request that was denied in June by the Historic Preservation Commission, and that the City Council overturned on July 7th, excuse me. The Historic Preservation Commission denied the request based on the criteria from the guidelines that you see here before you. I'll go over them briefly for you. The maintenance of the shape and forms that characterize the architecture, the preserving the historic window and window locations, and then preserving the location, number, opening, and size, and arrangement of those windows. Again, the Historic Preservation Commission heard the case and voted to deny with a vote of 5-1. As per ordinance, this request and appeal is within the purview of the City Council, so the City Council can decide to deny the request and uphold the HPC Commission decision, approve the request overturning the HPC decision, approve the request with stipulations, therefore potentially overturning the decision, or to continue the case for more information. So again, the request is to appeal the decision by the Commission to deny the exchange of the window with the double doors. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff is here to answer any questions, and I believe Mr. Voigt is also in the audience to provide a presentation of his own. Thank you.
Councilwoman Janik?
How many total homes are in Villa Monterey Unit 2?
In Unit 2, I don't know the exact answer, but if I remember correctly, there's probably about 36. That's about the average for each plat that existed there.
And then I think you said 22 homes had converted to the double doors?
That is correct.
So that's 22 out of 36? Or is that 22 out of?
22 out of the 758 units for the entire site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Durham.
Thank you. You just mentioned of the 22, what do you have a breakdown on the process that was followed for those 22 in terms of getting permission from the Historic Preservation Commission or the council or whatever?
Mayor Ortega and Vice Mayor Durham, only 3 of them actually received approval, and all 3 of them went through the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay. So the other 19 were just done without any approval or anything like that?
So Vice Chair Durham, 6 of them existed before the overlay occurred.
Yes.
1 of them was just recently added, and then 12 of them we could not find any evidence of approval.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Littlefield.
I'm sorry. What is the difference between those 3 and this one?
Mayor Ortega and Councilwoman Littlefield, I don't think there is a difference between them. They look pretty similar.
Thank you.
Well, let's move on to the applicant. Well, just let me ask one more question here. If you look at the existing front door, which is not going to be changed, that's what we call a 10-light French door. It has 10 pieces of glass in it. And then the replacement of a window, they're looking for 1 light, 1 in each section. Okay. And go back to the other picture, the full frontal of the. Okay, so it appears to me that is there a door behind that bush there or is that? Okay, the reason I'm saying that, so what is being requested, I see what's shown, but what I'm saying is you still would have the 3 French windows to the left of that picture, right? Is that correct? And it would be just the entry. Is that a new entry door with the double doors proposed?
Mayor Ortega, that is correct. There is an existing entry into the house. It's a little dark, but you can see it inside the carport. So currently there's windows. This would be new entry into the home.
Okay. So the new entry would somewhat contrast with the 10-light windows, or the window element to the left appears to have multiple lights, or we call them lights, glass panes, right? But this would clearly show a double door for an entry as a doorway without They did not propose having a 10 light. You could get doors with 10 lights in them, 10 small windows in them. But these are much cleaner as single lights. That's correct. Is that right?
Mayor Ortega, that is correct. The applicant did not propose a set of doors that would match with the gridded pattern that the existing windows have currently.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the applicant.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate, first thing I wanted to start off with was I appreciate the process and the opportunity to get up and have your ear and time to speak and share my thoughts. And I wanted to thank Jesus Murillo, Ben Moriarty, and Ben Lane for their accommodating me throughout this process and helping me and kind and never speaking down to me and always treating me with respect. And I appreciate that, guys. And secondly, regardless of the outcome, I'm grateful to be here and grateful to have the opportunity. I've lived in Scottsdale. I was born in Phoenix and lived in Scottsdale for the past 35 years. Got married here, ran a company here, my own company for 30 years, and sold it recently. I live here, and you know, I love my town. I hike Camelback, and I'm pretty involved in just my day-to-day life is here. And I care about the Historic Preservation Commission and their objectives. And I'm really trying, or have tried to fit within the parameters of what they're trying to do, and I agree with what they're trying to do. Ben Moriarty, we had talked a few times, and he said to, you know, go around and start counting homes. I said I walk the neighborhood all the time and in the evening, and he said, well, count. And so what I counted was 54 homes with French doors. 40 of those homes were our original construction in Villa Monterey, the bigger community, not in Villa Monterey 2, where I have my home. And so those homes were, it's the second floor that was built originally with French doors. And so it's not like they're foreign to the design or the feel of Villa Monterey. They were there in the beginning, but they were not done on the first floor by the original builder. And then secondly, I wanted to. So we have 40 homes that were built with Frenches on the second floor, and then the breakdown that you guys have already discussed about the ones on the first floor. And when I come into the neighborhood, when I first started, you know, as a kid, I rode by it on my bike, but when I really started to, when it started to appeal to me, it was a lot of the French doors that had been installed, and they've been tastefully done. It's not like they're thrown in. The people that have done them create that front sitting area that has become pretty popular in the valley, and it creates this dynamic in Villa Monterey where people are walking by, and there's a social aspect to it. And so people come out and they sit on their little brick patio and share, and there's a sense of community as a result of that development, I believe. So I researched historic preservation, and I found 3 headings: preservation, rehabilitation, and construction. And the rehabilitation part of it is what caught my eye. Rehabilitation talks about as a property evolves and its use changes, it's part of historic preservation to change a property so it will work with the current need or evolution of the environment or the structure. And we had a situation in Villa Monterey a few months ago where a gentleman had a stroke, and in most of the homes in Villa Monterey, you open the front door, and they could not get the gurney in because it can't make the turn, and they had to. You know, the guy was 200 pounds, and they had to get more people to lift him, and there's the risk of waiting, you know, after you have a stroke, and the time's precious, and all those variables. So on that hand, you know, we have double French doors in the front. People are older, and you have that ability to just open them both up, get right in there, get the person on the gurney, and get them out. That's one positive that I researched and found. It wasn't part of my objective, or, you know, that's why I want to do this. I'm more of the aspect that we're creating this really neat way to interact and have a place that is comforting and enjoyable. And then the other aspect of that is that in the 50s and 60s in the Valley, people would sit out on their front patio and visit. And Villa Monterey, I believe, and I've been told and read, that kind of had that intention in the beginning. And people don't do that anymore. And you have big cars, and it's kind of at Villa Monterey, to get out the front door and negotiate the car, it doesn't promote that social aspect. And so that's why, and Historic Preservation had said, we love the front patios. We don't have anything against the front patios. And that they're, but they have nothing to do with what the original builders intended. They weren't there, but they are part of the evolution of the neighborhood and the way people interact in the Valley and in neighborhoods. So I believe that adding the French door, there's a lot of them there. They're done well. I don't believe it takes away from the historic value. And that's a personal opinion, and I understand that everyone has their own, you know, their opinions and concerns, but it's in step with the original design, the French doors. And Mayor Ortega, you were mentioning the existing windows. The existing windows, the tin lights, they're Pellas, and they're not the original design. They actually go away from historic preservation in that the original windows were like trailer windows. You know, they were that aluminum single pane glass slider, and so that's actually what I've come back with. But now they're dual pane. Most people, because the HOA isn't going to let you come in and introduce the tin light Frenches, because those are the only ones in Villa Monterey. Because they did them, sometimes they'll do them on a weekend, you know, try to get in under the radar. It was a little bit easier, from what I understand, 20 years ago, but not anymore. So I just wanted to make that clear that I really believe that I'm following rehabilitation and the space being evolved or has evolved, and the look. If you drive the neighborhood and you look at the Frenches that are on the second floor as opposed to the ones that are on the first floor, they're in line with each other. It's not like we're wandering away from the original intent. We've just moved it to the first floor in use of the evolution of the space and the way it's changed. I think that's it. And any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Patrick, and you still have a little bit more time, but let's move on to public comment.
Okay.
And then certainly you could respond as well. So we have 3 requests. One's from Bryn Saranen. If you could please come forward, state your name, address, and Patrick, you may sit down for a bit. Right? And we have 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Hi, is it on? Okay, it's on. My name is Bryn Sharon. I'm at 2830 North 82nd Street. I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission, but I'm just here speaking for myself. I just wanted to talk about the guidelines that were not met by this request. If you add French doors, according to policy 2, I'm just reiterating what Mr. Murillo already said, but if you add French doors to the front, it changes the front facade. and that's in the historic preservation guidelines, and I just think it's important to follow the guidelines. That's just my personal opinion. The second policy, number 9, you don't want to change the number of original doors and windows. And to add French doors, you're changing the location, you're changing the number of doors, you're changing the number of windows. Thank you for letting me speak, and that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rose Smith. I also have a third person, clerk. Who's the third? Thank you.
Mayor, the third speaker is Kevin Lesk.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Rose Smith, 8708 East San Victor Drive. Thank you, Mayor Ortega and council members. My opinion is my own and not reflective of the HPC. In my term on the Historic Preservation Commission, I've been impressed by the dedication on the part of staff and commissioners to examine individual cases and research historical documentation of properties. In reviewing cases involving historical appropriateness, it has been my experience that changes to the backs of homes or those areas out of public view are generally approved, as they are not considered to be of impact to the integrity of the city's historical designation guidelines. Notable changes to the front, however lovely, convenient, and trendy today, may affect the initial vision of the original architect and compromise the character of the historical designation. These cases are never easy. Citizens are entitled to appeal HPC decisions to this council, which I totally support. Listening to recorded audio of the meetings validates how commissioners review each individual case to determine evidence within policies, historical documentation, and original architectural renderings. Discussion among commissioners and with the applicant are fact-based and professional. I cannot express enough my respect for the work of my fellow commissioners and the processes entrusted to the commission by the city and council members. Personally, thank you, Mayor and Council, for continuing to highlight community-partnered programs in Scottsdale and supporting the historical distinction of significant properties and neighborhoods in our lovely city. Thank you.
Thank you. We next have Kevin. Please come forward. State your full name and appreciate your input.
Hi, my name is Kevin Lesk. I'm one of two of the most recent residents of Villa Monterey, having closed on June 22nd. My property on East Rancho Vista Drive, when I look through my kitchen, directly across the street is exactly a single-level townhouse in the development. That is exactly what this gentleman, I don't know the gentleman who has the request or anyone who has spoken, is exactly, it had been 2 windows. The architect is Ralph Haver, and he's known for a 60s take on mid-century modern architecture. And all the single-level townhouses have 2 windows. Anything that has a 2-story, I've observed, has a door and a window in the front. Or if it has an upper level, it may have what appears to be a door opening to a balcony, but there are no balconies. It's a faux balcony. It's got like a metal, something suggesting that there's a balcony, but you can't walk out, so that gives it kind of the whimsical feature here. And Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that the left window, when I drove by and received the notice on the 27th of September, there was the multi-pane light of the window on the left and the one on the right. When I happened to just drive by this evening before coming out, the left window, the frame divided light window, is now a single, and it still has the word mill guard, window on the left. So that's what compelled me to speak, because and also the photo that was provided shows you're allowed to have a patio up to 3 feet in height on a block wall in the front. There's stipulations already in force for, the guidelines for that. And there is a patio, or there's a wall in front of what originally had been, when I looked at it, not this evening, but after receiving the card, there's like a 3-foot block wall. when you drive by, if I had not received this card, I wouldn't know if it was a door and a window and a window. Because of the solid block wall in front, you don't do a double take going, oh, that looks different. And as I say, the change that apparently that he's proposing, I'm not quite sure with the replacement very recently of the left window with a single pane mill guard. It seems to conform. There's a conformity of what this gentleman is trying to do and what the other homeowners are trying to do in order to, what do we call, keep that intention of the original architect, Ralph Haver. It doesn't seem to change the conformity. In fact, what I liked about the complex is that everyone's, unlike newer units in the valley, you can plant whatever types of plants you want to put in. You can put metal sculptures. There's such a variety, yet it doesn't detract from the existing conformity of what's there or what, in my opinion, this gentleman is trying to do. He's obviously trying to fix a property that has some structural damage. He's spending money in his property. I myself, where I am between, who happens to be my neighbor's, the corner unit happens to be the overall president of the HOA, and then I'm a single level, and the other house is a double townhouse. I can't exit my patio. There's no gate, and I am handicapped, so the only way I can get out is to go through the front of the house. So I understood his comment about, if you need help with something, it's hard. In my case, I have no gate, and there's nowhere to put a gate in unless I can't go through another property owner's property. But to me, the conformity is there, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir. So next, Patrick Wojcik can come up, and if there's any questions of, I see Councilmember Milhaven and Vice Mayor Durham. First of all, why don't we just see if there's some questions among us to Patrick, and or did you have any response to any? Well, let's go with Councilmember Milhaven.
I'm happy to wait to see if he has a response to the comments.
Was there any need to respond? Otherwise, we may have a couple questions for you too.
So the wall went through historic that the gentleman was talking about. It's called El Dorado. It's those a block that you can see through. They kind of look like a clover leaf. They're 60s retro, but they're just coming back like they're in all the new developments in Old Town. But that's what that wall is. And the walls, we have a real strict height. In Villa Monterey, one had to come down a couple months ago because it was just a few inches over, the desired height. So I'm at 32, and that's all approved and checked. But that was approved by Ben and his staff. That didn't have to go to the commission. So the French door had to go to the commission, but all these other things that I did are approved without having to go to the commission.
Good. Thank you. Then Councilmember Milhaven, and then Vice Mayor Durham.
So I want to apologize to the members of the Historical Preservation Commission. I think this is not the first case we've heard from Villa Monterey, and your job is to enforce the rules, and clearly if there's a rule that says how many doors you're allowed to have, that's pretty black and white. I know when we've looked at other cases here, it was vague interpretation. Counting how many isn't vague, it's pretty specific. On the other hand, the HOA says they're okay with this door. So when I think about, what, the Historic Preservation Commission members know, right? The community comes forward and says, hi, we want to be historically designated. We want to hold ourselves to these design guidelines. Then they come to the city and they say, city, will you approve that? And then after that, the city plays a role in approving or not approving something. Well, if the community isn't going to enforce its own rules, then I don't think as a city we should be stepping in, because it's sort of the community ruling itself. So I apologize to the members of the Historic Preservation Commission, because you're in a tough spot. The HOA isn't enforcing their own guidelines, and you are doing exactly what we're asking you to do, which is to enforce the guidelines. But I think, as I said the last time we saw this, I'd like to see the Villa Monterey community really revisit their design guidelines, either request to have the historic designation removed or clarify the guidelines. If it's going to be okay and the HOA is going to say it's okay to have a door, please don't continue to put the city and the Historic Preservation Commissioners in this awkward position. So having said that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request and overturn the Historic Preservation Commission.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we also show comment from Vice Mayor Durham and then Councilwoman Littlefield before we vote on the motion.
Thank you. I'm a little confused about exactly what's being proposed because Mayor Ortega mentioned that some of the drawings of the doors show panes and individual glass panes, but there's another picture in here which looks like it's from Amazon or someplace where it looks like you purchased the door as a price tag on it, but that picture of the door doesn't have any panes or anything. It just shows two glass doors with no panes. So can you clarify exactly what's being proposed?
So the original homes that were built in the 60s, they were single pane. And when I say they're like trailer windows, it's a quality of window where it's a single pane and it's the color of the raw aluminum, and they're sliders. So the windows in the front are 3.0 6.0s or 3 foot 6 feet and 4.0 or 4 feet 6 feet. And the original windows, the historic designated objective is to keep that look, two large single pane windows. The windows that Mayor Ortega was referring to in the pictures of the home are not in step with historic preservation. They're put in prior, I think the word is prior to the overlay, and they're the only house in Villa Monterey. So if I'm going to go in and put in new windows, I need to go back and comply with the original intent of the builders, which now we're not going to go to a single pane or a single pane window. It's going to be a dual pane for the R value and hot and cold. But we're going to stay with the look of the original. So those windows that you see in the pictures are really not relevant to the situation in that they would not be approved by the HOA or by historic preservation, but they were existing when I bought the home. So when I make changes, I have to bring it up to to the objectives of or the original intent of the builder. Is that I don't know if that makes sense or if that's confusing.
Yeah, I'm still confused because there was one picture where the double doors were drawn in onto your existing house, and those double doors as drawn in had various panes.
They don't. The double doors are like the Amazon picture. The double doors are the Amazon picture. They're called single light Frenches in that.
Okay, so there would be no panes in those.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm going to vote to support the Historic Preservation Commission on this. It's a tough decision because there's, as Councilmember Milhaven pointed out, there's inconsistencies between what the HOA is saying and what our rules are saying. And so this is difficult because there's been a lack of consistency, but as far as I can see, it seems clear that this would violate the rules as I read them. And you've pointed out that there are a number of double doors on the second stories of various buildings, but I don't think those necessarily help your case because they were part of the original architecture. And the rules require protecting the original architecture, and so the double doors there have that protection. There are two architects, I think, on the Historic Preservation Commission, and so I feel a need to defer to their judgment and also to defer to our own staff's judgment. I understand this would make use of your home more convenient, but I think that's part of the price of living in a historic district. So I would agree that it would be helpful at some point to sort of figure out what everybody wants about this.
Well, so there are other comments coming from Councilwoman Littlefield, Whitehead, and Janik.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Littlefield?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be supporting the appeal, but I have to say I 100% agree with Councilwoman Whitehead's comment, or not Millhaven's comments, because she's right. This kind of thing, and it's come before us before, has put us between the HOA and the Historic Preservation Commission. And that's not a place where we should be. I think that the HOA either needs to make up their mind whether they want to be historic or not, and live with it one way or the other. And I think that that is something that really has happened before, probably will happen again, but it's not appropriate as far as the way the city is running this historic preservation thing. So I'm going to vote for it this time. It looks to me from the history that I saw that a number of doors have already been put in since it became historic. The changes are starting to be made. I understand why you want it. It obviously will be much more convenient for you. And to me, you know, that's an important part of owning a home. But I really think that perhaps the correct way to go at this point after this vote is to get with the Preservation Commission and the HOA and determine which way do you want to go. Do you want to go in this direction or this direction and make it happen? But thank you very much.
Councilwoman Whitehead, Councilwoman Janik afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to thank the historic commissioners. The commissions have very rigid guidelines on how they can vote, and the council has a lot more leeway. And of course, I agree with Councilwoman Millhaven that this HOA needs to get together and talk about and not put the differences to the city to decide. I think they need to get together. I think this is a functional change, an important functional change, because it's not just about a veneer that may or may not be in style. It's about a door to the front patio, and I think that's not a style that's going away anytime soon. So I think it's an important change, and it's a change that I've seen throughout the neighborhood. But again, I do also want to thank the commissioners because you have a hard job, and I hope we can make that part of it easier with Villa Monterey. So thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Janik.
To me, this is a debate between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. And the Historic Preservation Committee represents the letter of the law, and the homeowner kind of represents the spirit of the law. It is a difficult decision to make. It's not the first time we've had to make it. I agree with what Councilwoman Millhaven said as well. And I'm inclined to vote for the spirit of the law, which would be in favor of the homeowner. And I would request, please, get your act together and get the spirit and the letter as one. And I do appreciate all the work all of our commissions and boards make. So thank you. And I do know it was difficult.
Councilwoman Caputi.
Well, since everyone else has spoken, I'm in support of appealing this as well, and mostly just because it seems incredibly random. I echo everything that my colleagues have said, and it's too random for us to say that it's acceptable to have for the French doors in some places, but not in other places, and it makes perfect sense. Again, totally functional. I can't imagine not having a front door in my house, and I personally don't think that this necessarily undoes the historical essence of this architecture. The word that caught in my head and really convinced me was when you said evolution. I think it's perfectly acceptable to have history evolve, and I don't see any conflict in keeping something historical but moving forward as the times suggest. So I am in support of appeal. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You may sit down. My comments are that there are 3 levels of review. One is the HOA themselves, and the other is a historic overlay that the HOA and the neighborhood subscribe to. to make themselves historic under the purview of historic preservation. And then finally, it comes to us as council. There's also another code that we're looking at, which is the Energy Conservation Code. So the old windows were what we call rattlers. They would just rattle and they'd get dust, and they were, they needed to be replaced, basically obsolete. They probably cost $30 when they were originally installed. So by complying and upgrading insulation and window and curb appeal, it could still stay within the character. I find that it's not, way out of character. Now, also in reviewing what the HP has approved, in particular one that's in our packet, which is number 5, HP 2016, it shows double doors, just like what's proposed here. And I think there again, that's consistent. Part of these homes is rather awkward because in order to get out to your, as soon as you pull into your carport, there's only one front door, and it's tucked in that corner. So it is awkward to get there, and then it's usually a step up, because we've been in there. So there's 4 inches step there to get up into your residence. There's this, if you did have a patio on the outside, you'd basically have to still come out that door underneath the carport to even enjoy the patio. So functionally, it is part of the so-called character of this patio life and leisure life in Scottsdale. So for that reason, yes, I am supporting it, and at this point, we all have spoken, so please record your vote. Okay, so we have 6-1 in favor, and thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Next, we will move on to item number 18, Alameda 3 acres rezoning, case number 4, ZN 2021. Presenter is Katie Pausler, Senior Planner. Hello.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Katie Pausler. I'm a Senior Planner with the city, and I'm here to present 4ZN 2021, which is the Alameda 5 acres. The site is located in North Scottsdale. It's south of East Alameda Road and west of North 132nd Street alignment. Here's a closer look at the property. It's currently vacant and home to a large wash and surrounded by other Story Rock subdivisions. The current zoning on the site is R1 130 ESL, which stands for Single Family Residential Environmentally Sensitive Lands. There are 2 requests in front of you today. The first part is to adopt ordinance number 4553, approving a zoning district map amendment from R1 130 ESL to R143 PRD ESL, and approval of a development plan with amended development standards for a 3-lot subdivision. And then the second part is to adopt resolution number 12526 to declare Alameda 5 acres development plan as a public record. Here's the proposed zoning of R143 PRD ESL. It's very comparable to the R118 PCD ESL Story Rock subdivisions next door. So previously, this case was heard by City Council on August 22nd, and it was continued for 2 reasons. The first was to reduce the lot number from 4, and the second was construction access to the site. Here's the revised site plan. So the applicant has reduced the lot number from 4 down to 3. They removed the northernmost lot, which helped provide additional NAOS and a larger buffer from the street, and then also agreed to a construction access stipulation, which restricts them to using Ranch Gate Road and then heading south on North 128th Street to avoid the emergency access portion of North 128th Street. The other key items of this case is that Planning Commission approved or recommended approval on June 22nd with a 7-0 vote. The PRD amended standards provide greater flexibility in design, and they help protect the NAOS in a tract, which leads for better protection over time as opposed to it being on individual lots. They're protecting the large wash on the site. This does conform with the general plan. It's reduced in density from 0.75 when you last saw it to 0.56 dwelling units per acre. It's consistent with the Story Rock master plan. It also connects with the Story Rock subdivision, so instead of 2 individual plats that had dead ends, now it connects throughout the site, and we haven't received any public opposition at this point. That concludes staff presentation, and the applicant is also here to present. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll ask the applicant to make their presentation.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Keith Nichter with Kimley Horn. I'm a land planner, and our address is 1001 West Southern Avenue, Mesa, Arizona. Katie did a great job giving a quick presentation. I'll do my best to do the same. I've been fortunate to talk with a few of you, and also had a lot of time over this past couple months to discuss with staff. And I will say, just at the last hearing, we definitely heard what you guys had to say. We went back to the drawing board with our team, and I think as a result, we've ended up with a better plan. And definitely heard what you had to say about construction access, and as Katie mentioned, we were more than willing and support the request to make sure that construction access does not occur on 128th Street. That being said, since I've done this once before for you, I'll do my best to make this the Cliff Note version, but just to kind of reiterate some of the points. We are located within the rural neighborhoods designation, which allows up to a maximum of 1 dwelling unit per acre, which would allow 5 lots on this property. We're down to now 3 lots, which puts us, as Katie mentioned, at 0.56 dwelling units per acre. That is more in line with an R170 type density, so that's down from the 0.75 that we previously showed to you back in August. I will also just point out that some of the other goals of the rural neighborhoods designation is to preserve the open desert character. We are now, with that loss of Lot 1, up to 67% of our site being open space. So I say that we're probably more than in line with that requirement, and I think, again, it creates a better setting on Alameda, and ultimately a better condition for the existing environmental features. Just to show you a little context again, we're surrounded on 3 of our 4 sides by R118 zoning, and we're well within the density of our surrounding contexts, and obviously much less now with our plan revisions. So even though we're proposing the R143 PRD, we're more at that R170 density. Quick overview of the type of lots within the community. You'll see at the top left that in the existing surrounding community, we have lots that are developed where you can develop your whole lot, and then all the surrounding open space and environmental features are within a tract. And then you have the typical development envelope style down on the bottom right, which only a portion of the lot is developed, and the remaining open space and environmental features occurs on a lot. With our proposal, we are requesting the PRD to reduce the lot size to make sure that our environmental features, which occupy a good portion of the property, are all in tracts, as Katie mentioned, which is also the preference of staff. So. Again, just to show this again, we originally came forward with a 4-lot plan at the 0.75 dwelling units per acre for 4 lots. After much discussion with staff and also some of you, we were able to remove Lot 1, which was along Alameda Road. The reason we chose that lot is because it creates the largest tract possible along Alameda Road. It also allows a uninterrupted desert scenic roadway buffer along Alameda, and takes away that lot that was adjacent to the portion of the wash that is on the northern end of the site. So not only does it increase and create an uninterrupted desert scenic roadway buffer, but it also kind of sets the table as far as character goes when you enter the community. You got hundreds of feet now of open desert as you enter the community, so it creates a nice setting as you arrive into the community. And again, just to reiterate, the benefits of this proposal is by including this 5 acres, we're able to create that second access point that the 95-acre Phase 3 portion of Story Rock did not have originally. Originally, all the access came out on 128th Street, and there was a dead-end cul-de-sac just south of this property. So by being able to include this into the community, not only do we improve access, we improve fire access and also utility connections. So it's definitely a benefit to the surrounding community and well within the character of that existing approval. With that being said, appreciate the opportunity to come before you again and appreciate your comments at the last hearing. And we're all hopeful and believe that we've addressed those comments and would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Good, and I'm just double checking. Is there any public comment? Okay, no public comment, so I would close public comment. And next I see a hand up from Councilwoman Whitehead.
Well, I just want to thank staff and the applicant's team for doing a great job. I'm very supportive. I really like how this turned out. So with that, I motion to adopt ordinance number 4553, approving a zoning district map amendment from single-family residential environmentally sensitive lands to single-family residential planned residential development environmentally sensitive lands, zoning and approval of a development plan with amended development standards for lot area, lot width, and setbacks for a 3-lot subdivision on a 5.6-acre site, and adopt resolution number 12526 declaring the document titled Alameda 5 Acres Development Plan to be a public record.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. You can sit down, sir.
Thank you.
And any other discussion? Item 18. Seeing none, please record your vote. Okay, unanimous. Congratulations. Good luck with your project. Okay, next we will return to public comment. Second opportunity for the Scottsdale residents, businesses, business owners, or property owners to step forward with a comment on any non-agendized item that would be within council's jurisdiction. Advocacy for or against a particular candidate or ballot measure is not permitted pursuant to state law, and therefore we would not want to hear that. No official action can be taken on public comment items, and checking there are none for the second public comment opportunity. Therefore, I will close public comment. Next, I will open the topic of citizen petitions. Citizen petitions are permitted and requested in or pointed out in our city charter as an opportunity for citizens to bring forth a petition. Seeing none, they would normally have been recorded at the clerk's office. So at this point, I will close the citizen petition portion of this meeting. Next, we will go to any mayor or council items. As you know, we were our rules would allow that we try to give notice so that they could be posted. With that, I see no other hands up or requests to speak, so I would request a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. So noted. Please record your vote. Unanimous. Good evening. Have a good evening, everyone. Don't forget the dog. Canine.